back to another video of Amaya Explains It All. In today's video, we will be interviewing with Keirsten, somebody who's very special to the Boys and Girls Club of Contra Costa family. And in today's video, she'll be sharing her experiences in dealing with depression and anxiety. And if you guys feel like you're dealing with anything similar, please feel free to stick around for the end of the video because we will link some resources that you guys can have. We are here to talk about various different topics, one of those being our mental health. So Keirsten, what does mental health mean to you?
So I would say mental health is, first of all, it's a very serious topic.
I agree.
A lot of kids and adults even don't realize how mental health can really affect you. And there's a whole bunch of different signs that you wouldn't even know you had a mental illness.
Yeah.
So mental health is just something that I've had to deal with for a very long time, and it's very important to know the signs and know when to get help.
Yeah. And so like from probably like the last 2 years of knowing you, I've kind of known that you struggle with like anxiety and most recently depression. Me knowing, not with you struggling with it. What's your like first what was your first experience with depression?
So I started noticing that I was super depressed when I was in high school.
Which is pretty common, right?
I never wanted to go to school. I noticed that when I was working on the weekends, and I would literally go to work, but besides that I would come home and I would just hide in my room and not really talk to anyone, and family would come over and they would be like, she's always sleeping, she's always in her room, but it's just...
Yeah, I think I can relate to similar experiences in high school too, where I'd go through spells of feeling the same way. In hindsight, I recognize that as depression, not depression at the time. What are some triggering things for depression for you?
So for those of you guys who don't know, I just had a baby. So basically, some things that I've noticed is that when I don't get enough sleep, I get super depressed. And after having a baby, as you can imagine, you don't get a lot of sleep with a newborn in your house.
Yeah.
So that's like one main thing that caused the depression. Other triggers, I would say, would just be not really having time to be with my family, especially during like this pandemic. It's just really hard.
It's like depression is very good at coming in during those times when we're separated from those who are very close to us, or like the fun things that we do or the things that make us happy. So depression, steps in, and it's very important that we recognize it and that we take the necessary steps to make ourselves feel better. What about when you're a teenager? What would like be trigger points then for your depression?
I would say the trigger points when I was a teenager was just everyone's expectations of what they want you to do and what you have to do.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Just the expectation you have to go to college, you have to graduate high school, you have to have a high GPA, and you have to be this role model for other relatives. And
yeah, and it's a lot of pressure, and I wholly agree with that. And it's important for the adults to recognize that too, on just because society as a whole and certain family members have an expectation for you to live a certain life or take a certain path, that there's other options. And it depends on like the person themselves, like what's gonna work for you, right? Because all of that's a lot to burden somebody who is a teenager with, or even like adults with, right? And not letting them have free room to be who they are as well. What advice would you have for like a teen right now who's struggling?
So right now, obviously, it's a really difficult time. You can't really go in and see a therapist or anything. But I know for myself personally, right now, I am doing therapy, phone calls, and I mean, you can always talk to someone. I've talked to my dad a lot, my sister a lot, my boyfriend a lot about it, and even like coworkers here, and it's very helpful just to know that you have people in your life. You're not alone. And then when things do get super hard, I mean, there's always hotlines you can call or text even.
Yeah. And you would be surprised by the amount of people who are also struggling, right? Like, or just like even just checking in with somebody, like a simple text message, like could brighten up their day. Or I'm like, oh, it was so nice to hear from them, or to have that, even if it was like for a few minutes. So like those are positive things that you can try to practice as well. And when you talk to people, like working with the people that I work with as well, it's like, I'm like, oh, it wasn't just me dealing with those issues. Like, I work with plenty of people who also might have this problem or that problem. So it's very nice. Can you talk a little bit about like your anxiety? Like, what does it feel like? Well, I want to do both, right? So what does it feel like to have anxiety, like an anxiety or panic attack, and what is it like what is the feeling of depression?
So anxiety and depression are two different things, obviously. So anxiety, it makes you feel on the edge. It makes you feel like very shooken up. When I do have anxiety attacks, it almost feels like you cannot breathe. Like, I've had times where I've literally been like, I need to go to the hospital. I cannot catch my breath.
Yeah.
And it's really scary. It feels like, I mean, it's just super scary. Anxiety is, and it takes a lot to overcome anxiety. And I mean, over the years, I've learned really how to recognize when it's coming on, to kind of prevent it. And it's all in your mind. So it's learning how to talk yourself out of it, or saying this isn't real, and just noticing like that's what's happening. With depression, honestly, it hits me at random times.
It comes in like waves, or like I used to say like I'll have spells of depression. So I definitely think you noticing what it feels like.
Yeah, so it's just the depression piece is just very difficult to explain. It just makes you feel very down and like helpless, I guess you would say. You feel like you don't have anyone there, and that you can't really reach out to people.
Yeah.
You just kind of want to isolate. And I mean, there's different types of depression. Not everyone's going to feel the same way as I do.
Of course.
But, I mean, some people don't even want to go to work when they're depressed. They want to stay home and
like completely shut in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or sometimes like you'll be like more abrasive towards people, and that's a way to recognize it, right? Like sometimes, like, okay, for myself personally, right, like I notice if I'm feeling like more like sad or depressed, and I'm not immediately recognizing it as that, but like sometimes I'm like a little bit more easily agitated or like abrasive towards people, and I'm like and sometimes I'm like, why did I even react that way? And I have to take a step back and really kind of like reflect on myself. So I see what you mean when you say like it's different for other people, for sure. So we're starting to wrap it up. A very important question, I feel like, is like oftentimes we find that we dismiss people's emotions. Sometimes intentionally, sometimes I think it's something that we just do and it goes unnoticed. Let's go to like now and then. So now, have you ever felt like your feelings of depression or your feelings of being anxious or anxiety or having anxiety, has that ever been dismissed?
No. I wouldn't say it's been dismissed. I mean, there's been times where, of course, it's gone away, but it's in some way it's always come back.
Yeah.
I mean, it just depends, like, what's going on in my life. I mean, I've had a lot of deaths of close people that, I've had a lot of people die that were very close to me.
Yeah.
And so
those are like triggering, right?
Exactly. So with all that going on, it really is hard and difficult, and it really does. It hits me.
Yeah. Especially like when you like miss the person or have those memories with them as well. I think it definitely like triggers those feelings of like definitely depression, right? Have you ever like tried to like as a teen, have you ever like confided or tried to confide in like an adult, or I mean even like a peer or anybody, and they kind of like brush it off like, oh, that's no big deal, oh you're fine, or you're lazy, you're not depressed?
I would say honestly, when I was a teen, I didn't really notice that I had it, so I never really went to people.
Yeah.
But like I mentioned prior to this, just being with my friends, like we all just thought it was normal.
Yeah.
We thought that like this is what an actual teenager goes through.
Oh yeah.
And so we never, me or my friends never really seeked help. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
What about as an adult? Has like anybody kind of like tried to like lessen what you were feeling or like brush it off like, oh, it's not a big deal?
I have had people like that, especially with the anxiety part about it. I know a lot of people who don't believe in anxiety and do think it's fake, which is their own opinion, so I'm not going to disagree with them or anything, but I know personally that it is a thing that is for me. But for my family, they all know that it is something that I am struggling with and that I am going through.
Yeah, that's very important. And it's very important, like when you are going through these feelings, like pinpointing out certain people who you like recognize are people to go to, because there might be people who might feel like they're just being antisocial, or like, well, no, it's like I'm just kind of going through something right now, or especially like family members too. And I wouldn't try your best to not let that get to you. Like if they think you're being just lazy or anything like that, it's super important just to find somebody who does understand and who you can talk to. And I'll definitely do my best to provide resources for that in this video as well. So at what point was it like, were you like, okay, this is it? Like I'm having this issue, I'm recognizing that it is an issue. So kind of like two parts, like when did you recognize that? And then like when did you go and get help for it?
So recently, I would say I honestly didn't really recognize it off the bat. It was actually my boyfriend who mentioned it to me.
Okay.
And it kind of just got worse. And so one thing that I wanted to do was get help, because postpartum is just,
yeah, it's a real thing. So how did you get resources for it? Like,
so the first person I talked to was my doctor, to reach out to them to see about getting help. For me personally, I did not want to be put on medication. That was an option. I wanted to start with therapy and see how that helped.
Okay.
And then
I think that's a good idea.
Go from there.
Yeah.
So I do therapy once a month, and it's an hour session, and we kind of just talk about different coping mechanisms and depression, anxiety, and it has been helping. I've noticed a lot, especially with my anxiety. Like, I'm less anxious.
Okay, so that's good. That's really good. Is there any, like, and totally up to you, is there any coping mechanism or any, like, anything that your therapist has, like, showed you that helps when you do have either feelings of depression or when you are having anxiety?
So, there's a couple things. One main thing is just, like, taking yourself out of that spot. And so for me, it's just like removing myself from a situation. So if I start to get really depressed, just taking myself away from it. And then taking a couple deep breaths, like refocusing my mind and then coming back in.
Yeah.
One other thing is, like I mentioned, I have had a lot of friends and family members who have passed away. And so my therapist suggested taking time to, like, focus in on that and just giving your mind an opportunity to think about what has happened. So just picking a specific time every day to just be like, this person passed away. These are positive things about it. These are some things that I am going through. So then that way your mind understands, like, you have that specific time where you are grieving, and then you have the rest of the day to kind of go through the day.
I think that's, like, really good, even for me to hear, because, like, oftentimes we think, I need to distract myself.
Mm-hmm.
I need to do something. I just need to do something else, right? But then it's like, eventually, when you stop doing whatever it is, we always end up, like, circling back to that and kind of get just kind of stuck in that dark place. Whereas it's like, if you give yourself that time, I think that's amazing. Like, I never thought of it like that. So that's thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So at the end of all of my interviews, I quoted interviews because I like to think of them as conversations rather as like an interview, but I like to end with something like fun a little bit. So right now I've asked all my guests, like, what are a couple things they're watching on Netflix, if they do, and what are some songs on their playlist or like you're jamming to in the car or whatever. So first, what are you watching on Netflix?
I don't really watch Netflix.
Okay.
So, I mean,
Disney Plus, Hulu.
let me think. I guess I honestly haven't really been watching any of those, but on TV,
Okay.
I've been watching Guys Grocery Games. So,
I like that one.
And Food Network is like my favorite. So that's pretty much what I've been watching on TV, if I do watch TV.
Yeah.
And then for music, honestly, I'm really into country music, so
Do share.
there's the new song, 6 Feet Away.
Oh, that's funny.
So that's amazing.
Who sings it?
I can play it for you, so you can hear what it sounds like. It's pretty cool.
All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Keirsten, again for coming on to the show. If you guys have any questions regarding mental health or any topics regarding anything for future episodes or ideas, any questions, please feel free to email me, linked below. Make sure you get parent permission for that first. And then I will see you guys later. Thank you so much. Bye.